Hey y'all, I am super excited to introduce you today to my friend Susie Streelman. Susie is the passionate founder of Zero Proof Experiences, an innovative venture creating memorable, sober in the city weekends, which redefine the concept of fun without alcohol. These happen all over the country, and they are even planning an upcoming trip to Europe to visit the wine country on an alcohol-free wine tour. While Susie was a former imbiber of Chardonnay, red blends, and Sauvignon Blanc, she has moved from feeling reliant on alcoholic beverages for socializing, vacationing, and special events to feeling empowerment in the newfound path she walks. Susie resides in Long Beach, California, with her husband of over 30 years, close to her 2 adult sons. During her leisure time, she enjoys playing golf, practicing yoga, or unwinding in the jacuzzi while planning her next adventure. With her unique perspective, Susie is dedicated to helping others discover the joy and freedom that come with an alcohol-free lifestyle. Through Zero Proof Experiences, she curates impressive events that celebrate life, connection, and personal growth without the need for alcohol. Listen in today as we talk about all things alcohol-free, including starting our path where we hid the fact that we didn't want people to know that we were drinking non-alcoholic beverages, to now seeing the growth and the changes in the alcohol-free beverage community, and all of the things that are on the calendar for Sober in the City and Zero Proof Experiences. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this one. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pammy Out Loud. I'm your host, Pamela Walsh, and I am here with my good friend, Susie Streelman. Susie is here. We talk a lot on this show about passions and connections and how do you use your passions to make connections. So I'm just so excited that you're here in Colorado Springs, and tell me about it, girlfriend. What's happening?
Well, I'm excited to be in Colorado Springs. I've heard you talk about it for so long. One of my passions is actually to play golf.
Which you're not playing golf because why right now?
Big side, because I broke my big toe 3 weeks ago.
How did you break your toe, Susie?
I was doing another passion, Pammy.
Which is?
Weightlifting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Susie likes to tell me that we women of a certain age need to increase our protein, our weightlifting, and what was the other thing you told me? There was 3 things.
Protein, weightlifting. What was it? I think it's our memory.
and our memory. Yes.
Yeah.
We need to work on those things. So anyway,
it'll come to us.
Yeah.
Later.
She's rehabbing a toe in time for her son's upcoming wedding. And Anyway, Susie is the founder of Zero Proof Experiences, which is
experiencing something alcohol-free.
Experiencing
that I like to say is we like to connect people in person, online, and through travel experiences.
Great.
Right.
And I first met Susie at the second Sober in the City. They host these wonderful gatherings. You could call them conferences, but I think that sounds a little more formal than it actually is. But these opportunities for women I say women, but it's also open to men, right?
It is, yes. We always get a few men. And that brings a nice energy too. It's kind of a multi-generational, a lot of times,
right?
Of an alcohol-free palooza,
right.
If you will, sort of a celebration of the alcohol-free lifestyle, for sure.
And so, what are some of the things that happen at a Sober in the City experience?
Yeah. So, by the way, we get most people, more than half of the people, come all by themselves.
Oh, is that right?
All by themselves alone. Yeah. So we actually tried to start with something that welcomes people.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a solo social the last few times, which is a chance for people that show up solo to sort of ease into the weekend,
right?
Learn about what's going to happen, maybe get some advice. What's the best way to get the most out of the weekend? And yeah, always start with kind of a fun mixer. I think we may repeat our pajama party.
The pajama party was very, very fun, definitely. And you've had, how many Sober in the Cities have y'all hosted so far?
Well, you're going to have to interview my partner, Peggy, later. I think it's 9 or 10.
9 or 10.
To ask Peggy
I've been privileged to go to, like, I don't know, probably 5-ish of them, I think, including there was one hosted in Austin. My first one was out in Sacramento, which is where we met. That was
where we met.
So I met Susie at Sacramento, at Sober in the City, Sacramento, and we immediately connected. And one of the things at that point, that was probably, what year was Sacramento? Do you remember?
I think 2022.
Right.
Yeah.
So Susie, like me, went through Sober Sis, right? That's you.
Yeah.
Was your first experience?
Yeah.
Or I was a Sober Sis resetter of 2019.
Woohoo.
And you were a year later?
Yeah.
Late. So we knew each other from the Sober Sis world, and then connected out in Sacramento. And we have sure seen a lot of changes since we started this journey, have we not?
Absolutely. So let me just pop in and say that I know you've talked about ways that transitions can bring on new connections, and how many more new connections do we both have, actually, just from going alcohol free. So that was the one that certainly surprised me.
Well, and it's very interesting. Like many other women that I know, one of my very first things that I worried about when I was pondering giving up alcohol on a permanent, and I wasn't initially planning on permanently giving up alcohol. I was just going to reset and go back to some form of moderation. But one of the things that concerned me was I was afraid that I was going to lose my friends, and or not have any new connections. Who was I going to hang out with if I wasn't choosing to go out for happy hour or go out to my typical circuit of where I was hanging back in the days. And so this has been something that I think is a real common concern, that where do you find connection when you give up drinking alcohol?
Yeah, definitely. Isn't it crazy? I mean, how much it's changed, because, we've been at this for a few years. So I think it's actually been 5 years. I absolutely had zero intention of giving up alcohol myself, just, going on a longer break. I was actually pretty expert at taking breaks myself. But
I never took a break. I just sat there and thought, I really should do something about this. And I never did anything about it until finally I'm like, okay, girl, you need to stop. You need to get a handle on this. So
yeah, I was actually probably your go-to person to come and talk to about breaks, except you wouldn't have known I was your go-to person, because I never wanted to share that I was taking a break. So why would you want to do that?
And also one of the things, like, we were talking today at brunch about how, initially we would even hide the fact that we weren't drinking in social situations. We would have pretend cocktails, right? And what would we do? From everything from dumping drinks in the planter on the side, right? Somebody pour something for you and you'd have to hit the bathroom or something.
Absolutely, 100%. I know you're not a big golfer, but I found it rather entertaining that, this is like midlife, maybe midlife plus, but let's go with midlife.
Some of us are more plus than others.
A lot of all my friends that I was golfing with like to do shots of Fireball. And I left. Oh, do you have it on the counter?
Do you see? Yes. We're actually at my place in Colorado Springs, and my husband's hosting some guys here this weekend. And if you look over on the counter, I think you'll see several little tiny shots of Fireball. So I suspect those might have made it out onto the golf cart yesterday afternoon.
That. And I was like, I never liked Fireball in the first place.
I liked Fireball when I was on the ski slopes. I'm not gonna lie.
That was a college kid thing.
Yep.
So I never really liked it. And I typically, honestly, didn't drink that much on the golf course the day anyhow. But when I was not wanting to drink, it was a really stressful time. I'm like, somebody got a birdie, or, after a while we did it for a par, right?
Right.
What that is. And they'd start getting it out and passing it around. And yeah, that was pressure. It is changing, though. One thing, I had a really, difficult time with socializing, frankly, because admittedly, my life kind of was centered a bit on Chardonnay time Or
mine definitely
wine
was.
time.
When people talk about drinking because they were down or depressed, that was not really my particular experience. I was let's go for happy hour. Let's go grab a margarita. Let's go, cheers to you. Oh, people, I was thinking about the days it used to be in our parents' generation that they would, people would come over for a cup of coffee, my experience was people would walk in my door and I would pour them a glass of wine.
Yes.
I usually would wait till afternoon to start pouring the wine. But there might have been times it was
exceptions.
It's like lunch, you want some leftover lasagna, let's get some wine out, right?
And one of my very favorite things to do was go out to a nice dinner and, have a glass of wine or two or, whatever. So going out and doing that alcohol-free was a pretty big challenge for me because that was honestly a big part of my dining experience.
And my experience early on was restaurants had very limited choices. O'Doul's was kind of the go-to. And also a lot of times if you ordered an alcohol-free Bloody Mary or any cocktail not alcohol-free, they would serve it to you in a kiddie glass. Like they had a special glass to designate this is a person that's not drinking alcohol. And, one of the things that you hear all the time, or I've heard all the time in the alcohol-free community is, we want to have the experience of having that beautiful glass in your hand, sitting with your friends. You don't want to sit there with your sad little sippy cup, right? Or red Solo cup, whatever, while everybody else is drinking out of crystal wine glasses, right?
No, you don't. And I was reminiscing a bit earlier this month. It was kind of making some Instagram posts and looking back a couple of years ago, our most popular consistent post was like, I ordered, please bring my alcohol-free margarita in a large water glass. Said no one ever. No one ever.
Yes.
And that, that was kind of one of my biggest nightmares.
Right.
Third world problems, first world problems, but it was a thing.
Yeah, it's because it wasn't just part of the connection we feel is having that drink together. It isn't so much what's in the glass; it's the experience of the community and the connection. And it was amazing to me how off-putting the fact that they wouldn't put it in the same glass. And that was pretty standard. And now I'm really excited to say that, we see so much of a change. I've mentioned it before. Our country club here in Colorado Springs is called the Garden of the Gods Resort. And they have a full dry bar menu, a full menu. It's just, and it lists 4 or 5 alcohol-free beers. It also has beautiful mocktails or zero. We like to use the word zero proof,
Yeah.
So, and it's and they have some alcohol-free wines even on that, which you don't see. You just don't see very many places. So I feel like they're really ahead of the game here, but it's getting to be way more common to see that than we ever, we're a long way from the O'Doul's days.
Right.
Which was 2019 for me. Yeah.
Right. Way more common. I don't even remember this. Pammy.
What?
But back in the beginning, when I was struggling I got a lot of pretty negative reactions from servers, frankly.
Really? Okay, tell me about that.
Because I would try to make this order. I would research ahead of time the menu and find something that I could order alcohol-free. And they would tell me, oh, that's pre-mixed. That won't taste like anything. Are you sure you want that? I don't think that's going to be very good. Or the best we could do is strawberry lemonade. Really? I got that all the time. I don't think that happened for you, but do you remember that I designed those
cards, business cards? I was just going to talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so I made 4 different ones. My favorite was the alcohol-free margarita, which, actually, honestly, I think it's a decent drink still now. It was sparkling water with a splash of pineapple on the rocks with salt and extra credit for jalapeno or something.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, now we have so many more products than that.
So one of the things that y'all I think is really exciting is there's been a huge growth. Susie, I'm like, I want to ask you about this because you can really speak to it. So you have been a real tracker, trendsetter, both, but also you pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the alcohol industry. And what can you tell me? And you even go and you listen into all of the what's the big trends now and. You've had some exciting news, in my opinion.
The non-alcoholic beverage industry has, I mean, it's gone from like less than million, right, to billions, and is still projected to grow like 10 to 15%. That's heavy growth in a business industry. Just recently, you've probably seen this online, but I think this has been the big hot ticket that everybody's talking about this week. One of the Gallup polls said only 54% of adults in the U.S. drink alcohol.
Wow, that's crazy.
And did we not think everybody did? It's dropping. It's dropping.
Didn't you tell me there's some conference or something? It's the alcohol beverage industry, and didn't you say like the fastest growing sector in the alcohol beverage industry is the non-alcoholic beverages? Was that?
Yeah, that was, I mean, a little over a year ago. I was on a call with one of the big, directors of all the metrics in it was for alcohol. It was for the Alcohol Beverage Association. And on that call a little over a year ago, I was just stunned because about 5 minutes into the call, all I could hear was non-alc this, non-alc that. Hot water is growing, non-alcoholic beer is growing, non-alcoholic spirits growing. Also beverages with THC are also a piece of that are growing as well, however you feel about that.
Right.
And I got off that call and said, I knew this was big. This is way bigger than I thought it was. And I think we've only seen that expand so much more. If I think about when I've just going out, let's just say a year ago, going out to restaurants. I'm going to say 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, in Southern California, I saw alcohol-free menus or zero-proof menus in about maybe 5% of the menus. That's not much. There were other regions that were way ahead of us, like where
Colorado.
Colorado, and your hometown of Austin.
Yeah, Austin is very, very much ahead of the game too.
And I believe that's the influence of Chris Marshall. Some people may or may not have heard of him, but he really started the first alcohol-free bar
in Austin.
In the country.
In the country. Let's just say that. Yeah, right.
Which was in Austin.
And the name, shout out Chris. The name of it is Sands Bar. And so we will have a link in our show notes to that because he has done so much for promoting this community and lifestyle. So that's another thing that I find really interesting that I know that is really important to you. And that is, let's talk about how do we create the space for people who are choosing to be sober-minded, maybe sober curious, maybe they're not all in, or we like to say sober serious. So I know that it's really important to you to create spaces where those people can feel comfortable, gather, and convene. So what do you see happening there, and what is your vision?
Yeah, I think it's unfolding, and whether you're sober curious or sober serious, you're welcome. I do see us connecting a little bit more with the wellness movement as well.
Well, yeah, let's just pause for a minute. There's new research that's saying the younger generation, the Gen Zs, they are choosing alcohol-free beverage options not because they're trying to get rid of alcohol, but because they are a healthier choice.
I want to say this statistic was around 28% of Gen Z is drinking alcohol. Now I know they're young.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's low.
That's pretty low. I don't think that's how it was when we were that age.
No, I don't. It definitely wasn't for me. No, for sure. Yeah. So we were talking like yesterday. In fact, we went to Colorado Springs is also blessed to have a zero proof bar. and it's called Gratitude down in Old Colorado City. And we were in there yesterday and had some drinks, and they also serve kava there. That's kind of one of their specialties. And they were sharing that they have a kava circle on Wednesday mornings, I think he was saying. And he was showing us pictures of people that were just enjoying all you can drink kava. Wasn't that? You could have that was how.
Yeah.
And it was just, he probably had 30 people in there.
Right.
Yeah, it was
right. Who knew?
Right. And so it was,
for an alcohol-free experience. So it shows you that things are changing. And we love to see those options, those zero-proof options on, restaurant menus or bar menus. That's great, because I know you and I, we don't really stay home. We still like to go a lot of places.
Right. So there's two schools of thought that you and I were talking about. And one is, I want to see, I'm like, why don't we have more alcohol-free? And there's a whole line of spirits now. You can get, alcohol-free tequila, right? Or alcohol-free gin. They make some really good alternatives out there.
I think they're very good.
Yeah. That give you the sensation of the tequila kick.
And can I add one thing about that?
Absolutely.
This is something that I didn't realize, and I think a lot of people don't realize.
Oh yeah, I bet I know what you're gonna say.
A shot of typical tequila is around 100 calories, maybe a little bit more. A shot of alcohol-free tequila is usually around 0 to 5.
0.
Yeah, 5 calories. So pour me a double, please.
Yes, yeah.
And the same thing with alcohol-free wine. In fact, I remember, this is our first event where we had Josh, the non-alcoholic, as our bartender in Sacramento. That's where we first met. I was looking at the calorie counts. They're like 20 calories per large glass. Like sometimes that's an 8-ounce glass of wine for 20 calories. And I said, Josh, how is this such a low-calorie drink? You know what he said, don't you? He said, Susie, there's a lot of calories in alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh, who knew?
Who knew?
Because
we didn't care back then. Yeah, we just were going for the buzz, I guess, right? I don't know.
And we just saw when we were shopping, I don't know if I showed this one to you, there was a wine glass that said, it doesn't say the number of calories on the wine bottle, so there must not be any in it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Why is it? I don't even know why. If somebody knows the regulations about the alcohol.
Yeah, why don't they say the number of calories?
They don't put calories. I mean, we can go get your husband's vodka.
Okay, don't
see if there's a calorie count.
Right. It's not my husband's vodka. I just want to say.
Oh. Well, whose vodka is it?
There were some golfers here last night.
All right. Sorry, Brian.
No. Yeah, I will say my husband, that used to be both Brian's and my drink of, well, I was I like to say Balade Cabernet. That's what I used to say about myself. But I was an occasional vodka girl as well. And we used to drink quite a bit of vodka ran through these doors. But after Brian had a heart scare, his doctor said, hey, you need to cut back on your drinking. And one thing about my husband, he's extremely disciplined. When a doctor tells him to do something, he goes after it. And so we haven't had as much spirits in the house as we used to.
Gotcha. Can I interject one more thing?
Yeah,
because this was around, like another hot button in the media, I believe it was around January when our Surgeon General noted that there really is no safe level of alcohol to drink. It's not, really my message. I think everybody should do what they want to do. But, frankly, it's nice to just have the information, right? So that you can make that choice. Like
I know that Canada, their dietary guidelines now say there is no safe levels of alcohol, recommended consumption of alcohol. I always think, are we ever going to get there? Because I was talking about this last week with Kristen Horseman, and I just don't think we're going to get there because of big alcohol. I think maybe it'll go the way of cigarettes and get those warnings, but who knows?
Yeah. It's interesting to see how many, really they're almost all of them are making an alcohol-free option.
Yes.
Even the spirit companies like Bacardi, I forget which one they own, but they own an alcohol-free spirit in TSA.
Right? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, Coors, Budweiser, Heineken, my favorite, Blue Moon. I mean, they all have alcohol-free options now.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
That's pretty cool.
So-
Heineken was really the first.
So let's talk for a few minutes about alcohol-free wine, because that has been one of the more, I think, more challenging alcohol to mimic in a successful way. And so you're starting to see some better alternatives, right?
Definitely. And I get messages about that fairly often over on Instagram, like, what are your favorites? What do you like? The classic, honestly. So let me just get this out of the way right now. Is there a red one
No.
that's any good?
No, I don't think so.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is?
I think there's a couple.
Okay, tell me.
Actually, I have a few.
Inquiring minds
In
want to
fact-
know. Because, I was a Cabernet girl, so I've always said, because I liked it, I think it's been harder to find something I like.
Yes. So I have a few on my list, and if you message me on Instagram, by the way, I'll just send you my list of Susie's favorite NA wines, because
I might boost
people ask me that every once in a while.
I think I'll put Susie's favorite NA wines in the show notes. How about that? Could we do that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that'd be fun.
And here's something else that I think it's important to put out there, particularly to those of you that haven't been experimenting with alcohol-free beverages, is don't expect them to cost like the amount of a Diet Coke. They're not. And I think a lot of times people are shocked. I know I was. I'm not gonna lie. So let's talk about, why is that so, Susie?
Yes, because it's more expensive to make. It takes more wine to make. It takes more grapes to make, because most people, it's de-alcoholized wine. So they first make the wine, then they use an expensive machine to take the alcohol out. Then you've removed the alcohol. So it actually takes you need about 20% more wine. So many of the regular wines, if they make both, like Gießen does, I think that's a nice wine. Their alcohol-free wine is around $15, and their wine with alcohol is around $10. But back to that red one, I'm going to knock that out.
Okay. Yeah.
I honestly have a few favorites, and it's something that I enjoy. I enjoy drinking a red blend before. Not as much the Cabernet, although Drink Joyous has a pretty nice Cabernet.
I love Joyous, yeah.
You should let that breathe, just like you would a typical bottle of wine. Now, upscale. I'm going. So this is not my everyday wine.
This is not your standard daily table wine.
No, but I was able to taste it at Joshua James's place in Ocean Beach. Anybody in the Bay Area, you absolutely should take a visit. There's great food and lovely zero-proof cocktails. Many choices, and he'll educate you, or his staff will. But he has imported from Austria red wine they call it Geronimo.
Okay.
It's one of the only ones that really has that complex flavor, and it has what do they call this smell of wine? I don't know.
The bouquet? No.
Bouquet, but
whatever. The nose.
Whatever that is, it actually has that, and it's really the only one that I've heard of.
Okay, and what does a bottle of Geronimo go for, Susie?
It'll set you back about $80. So I do suggest it, like, for holidays.
Yeah.
If you want to have something special to celebrate.
But and here's what's interesting. There was a time that I don't want to say we wouldn't think anything about an $80 bottle of wine, because I never was that kind of a connoisseur.
Sure.
20 was probably my maximum, but
Right.
there's certainly a price point that we were totally comfortable with alcohol. And then we all of a sudden go, well, it's alcohol free, I shouldn't have to pay for that. Right. So, that's, and like, if you think about even from a bartender's perspective, to have some of these beautiful zero-proof cocktails that they make up, they're still mixing several parts of things, draining things, shaking it, putting beautiful garnishes on it.
And especially if they're using a specialty alcohol-free product, like a spirit, like a bitters, there's aperitifs.
Right. So there is. You're paying for the creation of it, as well as all of the products
as
that go
the
into it.
ingredients.
Right. Yes. So now, speaking of wine, Zero Proof Experiences is offering. Are you
going to let me talk about this?
Yes, I am. I know you're dying to talk about it. So you've got something very special. Zero Proof Experiences has got something very special on the up.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that I've gotten questions about too. Like, what about wine tasting? What about wine tasting? Are you ever going to go wine tasting? Going, how would you do that? Should you do that? And, I thought that maybe we'd somehow do a wine tasting trip. I live in California, so maybe do the Napa Valley and we'd take it back or something. And to be honest, the Napa Valley is not ready for us yet. But you know who is? I think you do know.
Who's ready for us?
Germany. And you think I would never have expected to be taking the world's first, I want to say, non-alcoholic wine tasting trip to Germany. Yeah, so that'll be in October. It's probably full. We might have one or two spots, but we have a great group going.
Yeah. So how many people do you have going on this trip?
I think there's 13.
So you get this nice, intimate group of people going. And you actually, it's not just women. You have some couples that are going on the trip, correct?
Actually have 3 husbands coming along.
Yeah. And you've got plans to go to how many different wineries?
There's 4 wineries that we'll be visiting that have, they make a typical wine too, alcoholic wine and non-alcoholic wine. And we'll be visiting and we'll be tasting. And I want to just throw in too that I have to admit that if you are not drinking alcohol for whatever reason, like maybe you've gone wine tasting before and you've been pregnant or for whatever reason not drinking alcohol, it's not the easiest thing to do. I think, I consider myself pretty good at doing a lot of things alcohol free.
Right.
And I'm going to say that's not the easiest thing to do. But Germany also, if you think German engineering, they have, in talking to you, some of the beverage experts, they really have the best de-alcoholization equipment.
Oh, that's interesting.
A lot of the favorite wines that I ordered, what's it called? Sorry, I'll think of it a little bit later. But some of them I found out were actually produced in Germany. They're distributed here, but Leitz is made in Germany. You've probably had some of their wine. They make kind of a full spectrum, and that's one of the wineries that we'll be visiting.
Oh, that's going to be exciting. Well, and so that's coming up in October, and we'll be looking forward to hearing all about that. And hopefully this is the first of more to come in terms of non-alcoholic wine trips, and that will hopefully see it out in the US. At some point it will come out to California and Napa.
I think it's coming. One of my favorite wines that does come out of Napa, I'll just throw in, is Drink Sovi.
Okay.
And they have a red blend that I really like. I kind of like their red blend reserve. It's a little bit more. And, just to be forthcoming, a lot of the non-alcoholic wines that I like are between $25 and $30 a bottle.
Okay.
I'll just, so it's not nothing, but
it's nice to know that there are choices that are out there. And, when my son and daughter-in-law who got married in 2022, they made sure they had Prosecco at, that's a Prosecco without alcohol that is put out. I don't even know who puts it out, but they and my daughter-in-law Beth made sure that was available for me. And what was interesting was I was not the only one drinking it. I mean, she had some pregnant friends that were drinking it. She also had there was a couple people that had other health concerns and people that did not want to be drinking alcohol all night long. But we had that. One of the things that I often heard when I was doing Sober Sis from groups of other women was, I want to feel like, you want to be part of the toast. You want to celebrate. You want to have something pretty in your glass. You don't want to toast with your water glass, right? And to offer these as opportunity, these choices out there is important. And I saw it at their wedding. I attended another wedding I think I told you about where they had non-alcohol wine, and it ran out before the evening was over. And so I was not the only one drinking it, so they were so thoughtful to make sure that was an option for me, and apparently other people like it too. So it is surprising how many people will choose it if it's available, if they can see it, if they know that it's there.
If it's out front on the menu.
Yeah.
And I often ask, when I'm out and I see the menu, how is this selling? How is it doing? And that's 9 times out of 10, I'm told this is doing very well. We're selling,
Wow.
multiple every evening or every day.
So I want to something. Our friend Janet, and you know Janet, yeah.
Yeah,
Janet and I were talking about that. This is something that she experiences, and I really want to put this out to our audience who are not part of the Sober Curious movement.
Yes.
Okay. And she said, like, one of her things that she finds, I don't know if frustrating is the right word. I think frustrating would be a right word, is that, like, she's in a book club or a couple of monthly gatherings of women. And she said, I've been doing this for 5 years now, right? Where she hasn't been drinking alcohol. And she said, and they still don't. The hostess still doesn't never says, well, what would you like? And like how we don't think anything about, like, we know this is our friend Marcia who drinks Chardonnay, and this is our friend Joni who drinks Cabernet. And we always make sure that we have those options for them, but that sometimes the alcohol-free, sober curious sector gets overlooked in social settings. And that I'd really like to challenge my audience out there. I have some, be a good hostess. It's just like, it's become so much more common for people to have vegan options for their
vegan, gluten-free.
Yes. Yeah. Like, that awareness has thankfully come to light, and it is something that's offered to people. But I would sure like to see that and I am seeing it. I got great friends from the very get-go. They said, what is it that you like? And they made sure they had it. But they're, nobody wants to go over and like, and by the same token, as a member of the sober community or sober-minded community, we need to show up with it, right? We need to talk about it with our friends. We need to say, don't necessarily hope that they're going to have it. If you want to make sure you have it, walk in the door with it. Just like, like I said, I was a Blue Moon girl, and I never went anywhere when I was drinking alcohol, Blue Moon. I took it with me because I didn't like another beer. And by the same token, if I go someplace now, I take my own non-alcohol Blue Moon because I like it and I want to make sure I have something to drink.
Yeah.
So there's two sides of the story there.
A big thing. And what hearing your story is sort of encouraging me, and something I've been thinking. I want to make a little Instagram maybe series about the thoughtful hostess.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I've been seeing it a little bit more. Now, I've also been to barbecues and somebody handed me, like, I don't know what it was. It was a kid drink, because there was drinking it. And they gave it to me, and I did. It was thoughtful.
Right.
It was thoughtful. And so I was going to drink that drink, and then the other people at the barbecue says, oh yeah, my kids like that too.
Yeah.
Ouch. So there you with the kid drink again. But I've also recently been to a bridal shower.
Yeah.
For actually my almost daughter-in-law.
Aww.
And our lovely, thoughtful host had alcohol-free champagne and champagne, all, sitting in the bucket, displayed beautifully, and then little juices that you could add. So you were just part of, which I think is a great trend, the deconstructed cocktail.
Yes.
Whether it's zero proof.
Yeah.
You choose whether
we did that. We did that last year. Thanksgiving is my family's big holiday, and I host close to 50 people that I'm all related to at my house for Thanksgiving. And last year I had a mimosa bar, and it had both just Prosecco and no Secco. And what was really fun was the kids, the young, the junior high school kids. They thought it was so fun to have one of these famosas, as we called them.
Yeah.
And then we did have a moment where my niece said, she was doing dishes, and she's like, I just figured out while I'm not feeling anything, I've been drinking the famosas all day long. So we wanted to make sure they're clearly labeled so that nobody was getting what they didn't want.
And I want to say also that they don't know what you want. Our friends don't. No, like we're a little bit more expert in the alcohol-free beverage industry than most people, right?
Right.
Because, I consider one of my hobbies alcohol-free beverages.
Yes, yeah, for sure. But,
Yeah.
I had a friend that had a refrigerator full of non-alcoholic beer and I don't remember, it was Heineken Zero and several different things.
Yeah.
And she had somebody come pet sit for her. It was a teen, no, I don't want to say teenager. It was probably like an early 20s something. And she came back, and it was like pet sitting and house sitting. And this was a good friend or child of a good friend. I can't remember the connection. But when she came back, she realized that the beer in her fridge was still the same beer, but it all had alcohol in it. And so whoever had been babysitting
they did a little switch out.
Yeah, well, that they probably were drinking her non-alcohol and didn't even realize it was non-alcohol, and then replaced it, being thoughtful. They put it back in there, but put the wrong kind back in there, which I just thought that was so funny, because I've had many times people have grabbed a Heineken Zero out of my fridge and thought it was a real Heineken. And I'll say later, did you realize that was Heineken Zero? And they're like, you're kidding. Tastes just like it.
I've definitely had people finish off the alcohol-free wine too.
And
especially mid-evening, they don't know. They don't know. And so that's kind of nice.
And my oldest son and his wife, they drink a little alcohol, but not a lot. But they have alcohol-free drinks in their house. And my son will say, I frequently, I'll have a regular beer, and then he'll switch to non-alcohol beer later on. He goes, just because I still want to have a drink in my hand, or I'm eating pizza or whatever he's doing. So you still want to have he enjoys the taste of it, right? So, but he doesn't want the buzz anymore. He doesn't want the alcohol. So you can have the mixture of both, and having that as options is awesome.
Great. It's great to have options. And I believe it's 90 to 95% of people that buy alcohol-free beverages also drink beverages with alcohol.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's exciting. Yeah. It's not unbelievable.
We were it's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not just Susie's wine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could try it too, and you can,
and you might be surprised how good it is and what's out there. And you don't have any of the consequences. The other problem with drinking mimosas in the morning, that day drinking leads to afternoon naps. I mean, it's very hard to keep your momentum going when you start your day with vodka, or champagne.
Yeah,
it makes you tired. I was sleepy when I did that. Yeah,
that's for darn sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if I could pull it back into the culture shift.
Yes, I was just going to say one of the things. Go ahead. Yeah,
I thought you were, but it's interesting that big alcohol, I think, is a little bit nervous, honestly, because drinking is declining. So, they're coming up with these beverages. There are also just so many wonderful, independent, kind of bootstrapping beverages, like almost all the wine brands that I mentioned are in that category. And Ritual Tequila is a bigger one, but they've got great alcohol-free spirits. I'm just... and we want input. We've put on a lot of these alcohol-free Palooza weekends, but, we want input from those of you that are curious or kind of in the game to be part of designing this next shift of culture.
Okay, and how does that happen? How do you think that happens, Susie?
Well, for example, like this non-alcoholic wine tasting trip. I mean, my friend Darcy, who runs Hooked Alcohol-Free Travel, and I put it out there together. Not really, just because you put a trip out there doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right.
And so the reason it's happening is because people like you stepped up and said, hey, I'm in. I got one message when I was sort of sharing about it, that she said, well, let me know if it catches on. I might go sometime.
Oh, that's funny.
So the trip wasn't for her. This is really for somebody that's kind of at the front of the train and wants to be a part of creating that new space, that new culture.
And what was really interesting is we said 5 years ago when we were first meeting, connecting, was we said, we're at the beginning of this new cutting, like we're on the front end, we're on the cutting edge. I'm not so sure. We joked about it. Did we really believe that was true at the time? Like we hoped it was true, but we were still secretly going, I don't want to be the weirdo that's drinking, not drinking the alcohol. And now it really does seem like the community has embraced this movement. One of my challenges, and what I admire about you, Susie, and one of the things that I am challenging myself and also those of you that are out there in the sober curious community too. If I go someplace and they don't have anything or very little options, I don't ever follow up and say, hey, you really need to do this. I just say, oh, okay, give me an iced tea. Right. And I'm challenging myself and those of you out there listening is, write the email, make little card. My friend Kim made little cards that said, we had great food here. I would love it if there was some alcohol-free choices beyond soda pop, And so that's one of my missions in the next year is to be more vocal to establishments that I go to and say, give me some choices. And I appreciate that.
An easy-ish way to do that is to bring your own bottle of wine and ask them to cork it. Every restaurant has a corkage fee and they will cork it for you. And it's a nice experience. I've actually rarely had to pay. I'm always willing to, honestly, because I think it's fair. Right. But I also would like to be able to order it off their menu. And I usually say, here, this is what I recommend.
Yeah, that's
wine, and I would like to cork it. I hope to be able to order it off your menu one day. And so often they don't charge because they sort of feel bad that they don't have it to offer.
Yeah. So, okay. I have another question I wanted to talk to you before we close this up is besides these Sober in the City experiences, which I just think are outstanding and have been such a gift to me in terms of connecting me with like-minded women and men, a couple of men, but that who are in this space and who are who are fun-loving, intelligent, creative, thoughtful individuals that I never would have met otherwise. And certainly, we think that alcohol, I think we think that alcohol helps us connect with others. It really doesn't. In my opinion, we are disconnecting from ourselves when we drink alcohol, or I was. My connections now feel so much more authentic and genuine than they ever did under a haze of alcohol.
I think you and I were saying, was it this morning, that we both feel a little bit more like ourselves.
Amen.
Yeah. Yep. Which is, I didn't really see that coming. And that doesn't just happen
No.
in a day or a week.
No.
So there is that.
Isn't it interesting? Because one of the things I said is I used to be an instigator in terms of let's go for happy hour. Let's go, come over. Let's, because drinking with others didn't seem as bad as sitting alone by yourself drinking. But one of the things I do spend a lot more time alone. And what I say is, I like myself better than I did when I was drinking. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have plenty of issues and that I don't do things I wish I had. Yeah, I have problems. And that I don't say things that I wish I hadn't. I don't, I still make the mistakes, but they're not mistakes that I made out of a loss of a filter, a loss of I feel like what my communication is more intentional than it used to be. And I enjoy being by myself, and the relationships that I've cultivated from friends in the sober-minded community. My friend that here in Colorado Springs, who does drink occasionally, one of the things she said to me, which kind of surprised me, when she found out that I didn't drink, she said, that's one of the things I like most about you is that you don't drink. And I thought that was so interesting. Like, you're like, oh, because I thought I was pretty darn funny and when I was a drinker.
Everybody drank, but actually, I guess there's only 54%, if that gal holds right.
Okay, so isn't that interesting? Like, I thought if I quit drinking, who would I hang out with?
Right.
And
I guess about half of the people.
And if I could find anybody that didn't drink, that was thing number one. Would they be boring? Would they be no fun? Because that was what I thought.
Sort of like
that was what I thought.
Boring and no fun.
Boring.
Yeah.
She's boring and I'm no fun.
We don't really do anything. Yeah. Boring. Yeah. Ain't no fun. No.
So, but really quickly, I keep saying this, we're about to wrap this up. Okay. One of the reasons that Susie is here in Colorado Springs is we're getting ready for another Sober in the City coming in May 15th. What is
May 15th through 17th?
Here in Colorado
Springs at the Cheyenne Mountain Resort.
And we will have links in the show notes about how you can learn more information, get more information about this. We'd love for you to join us at Sober in the City, Colorado Springs in May. We also, in addition to Sober in the City, Susie and her partner, Peggy Cooney, sponsor a group called Zero Proof Experiences, and it's an online support group. So before we wrap up, can you tell me a little bit more about that and what people can get out of that? I'm a card-carrying member of ZPE. So what is ZPE, Susie?
Yeah, so it's a way, we understand that not everybody is in a position to travel and have a big experience every year. Although we do think it's so much better being in person.
Yes, it is.
My dear friend Pammy than online. But sometimes that's what we can do. And so it's a fun way to connect with people, some of which will be attending Sober in the City too in between. So we do 2 connection calls a week at 6:30 a.m. Pacific time on Mondays and Thursdays. And they're topic related, where it's not coaching, it's connection, but directed, very interactive calls, kind of centered around I'm alcohol free. Now what?
Yeah, that's what I like about it is there are a lot of fabulous programs out there. I mean, I'm very grateful and thankful to say that there are so many more options than AA, which is a great program, but there are online options out there to help you get sober or choose a sober-minded lifestyle, and there you can find those.
Even to decrease your drinking.
To decrease, yeah.
So, maybe you just want to try cutting down.
Exactly.
There's a lot of options there too.
But what ZPE gives you is, it's not really how do you do it, but it's now what do you do? Once you've removed this from your life, I often say it's like you take off these blinders of the things that you were either numbing or just putting aside, not addressing in your life, and that are important in terms of developing as a person and continuing the growth path that you get on once the alcohol's out of your life.
Yes, definitely. A forward facing a conversation. And we're asking, our members kind of too to help us,
right.
Like you and I were talking about this event, Sober in the City in 2026. I mean, we've had some great events. We really want to learn from each one. And I think this one could be a nice bump up in the way that we create spaces for people to connect in a comfortable way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking for, ideas, feedback, small groups, larger groups. We've got a lot of bones of the weekend even already set. But
yeah. And just so you know, some of the topics they have done, we've included sober sex, we've included journaling, there's been yoga, there's been different movement, trauma response.
Some authors.
Yes, we've had some great authors.
Yes. Kenny, we had the functional nutritionist, Dr. Mel. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had some good authors.
We bring in, like I'm doing it. I act like I'm doing it. I'm just there. But they bring in some real instrumental leaders in the health and wellness community. It's not just about being alcohol free. Again, it's how do we connect and how do we grow and how do we have the best life ever?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We try to err on the side of party, not conference, but we have been accused of both.
Well, with that, we're going to wrap this up. And I just want to thank you, Susie, for being here. I look forward to you coming back in May.
Oh, yeah.
When that foot is healed and we can trek around up and down Cheyenne Mountain a little bit. And we encourage you to check out the show notes. If you're interested in learning more about Sober in the City and Zero Proof experiences, the links to Susie's Instagram and what other ways you connect with both of us will be there too. So we're going to wrap this up now. And thank you so much, Susie. I'm going to miss you. We'll see you online. I'll see you on Mondays and Thursdays on a ZPE call.
Awesome.
Okay.
I love doing this in person.
Yeah. So remember, keep speaking out loud because gritting your teeth gives you TMJ.
Cheers.
Cheers.